I'm Sunny from adventuresofsunny.com. These are lessons from the Adventures of Sunny. Basically what I do is when I bump up against something that I want to know and I don't know much about, I go find an expert and I interview them and I record it so other people can learn as I learn. And my favorite part is that I kind of interrogate people. So today I am interrogating Damien Reed. Damien is one of my partners. I call him my platonic lover. He's very, very important in my life. And I'm very, very proud of him because he just became an international best-selling author. I've always wanted to write a book. He just wrote a book. So today we're going to learn a little bit about that process. Hi, you.
Hello. This is so cool.
I know. I'm very, very excited. I'm so proud of you, first of all.
Thank you.
Will you tell the world a little bit about who you are?
So I'm Damien Reed, and I'm an entrepreneur expert. I'm an international speaker, and I can say for one of the first times that I'm also a #1 international best-selling author. And I'm an international best-selling author of Cure Entrepreneurialitis, 52 Habits to Earn the Freedom That You Deserve. So that's who I am. That's who I am. Yeah.
And you people could talk a little bit more about the resources that got your butt in gear to write the book.
I think the first thing people need is to clearly understand what the steps are to writing a book. Google it.
Get the steps.
Get a timeline that says, research your title, pick your title, create your outline. I'm just thinking through all the different steps, but there are all these steps. Yeah. Write your first draft, right? Get your edit, like all of these things. Do your typesetting, all of that. So first thing you need is to be clear about what is involved in actually doing a book, a timeline. Okay. Once you're clear about the timeline, block it out. It will take you longer to write than you think. Right? And I probably underestimated writing time by probably a factor of 3. So, if whatever I thought would take 2 hours took 6.
So timeline.
Yep.
Block it out. Expect it to take 3 times longer for writing.
Yep. Get yourself a great editor. Like actually great editors. You're going to want one editor to do your developmental edit, which is the first round of editing. And a developmental edit is like the big box edits. So an example of feedback that I got from my developmental editor would be, this habit is completely not understandable. You need to rewrite it. Right? So those are big.
Broad, sweeping.
Yes. So for every 1,200 words that I wrote, I might get 3 or 4 comments back. Right? That's a developmental edit. And then you may choose to have a second editor do a content edit with you once you've made the changes from the developmental editor. Is that they may be like, okay, well, we want to move this paragraph from here to here or make it flow. So that's content editing, okay? Which is, again, bigger chunks, but you'll see as you do the rounds of edits, that the amount of change you get smaller and smaller. Then the third round of editing you're going to do after you do the content editing is what's called a line edit. And so the line edit is now you think it's good, but the line editor is going to come in and they're actually going to make your words sound like something somebody wants to read. And that line editor is invaluable. Joanna.guerriere was my editor. She did my content line editing and the last round of editing, which is copy editing. And I always say to her, like, she took what I thought was like total crap and turned it into like a melody, music, right? So that person is invaluable to you.
So when you found your editors, was it by word of mouth? Did you pay a service? Like, how did you kind of give us some ideas of where to start as we're looking for editors, like based on how
So a couple of places that you can look for editors. You can go on to Upwork and just look for editors. So there's lots of editors available on Upwork. I got referred to some by word of mouth. So people have written books or book coaches or those kind of things, they will have a team of editors, and so you can find people that way. I also contacted the local, we say universities, you say colleges, the local colleges or universities, their English departments, because you can find, master's students or thesis students who are interested in those kind of projects. And so you can, I posted on their job boards.
Nice.
For editors. And usually those editors, they will come with less experience, like less book experience, but they'll also be at a less of a cost because they want to have themselves be credited in a book because it works for them and their background, right?
Yeah, and I'm all about apprenticeships and helping college students and stuff. It's brilliant, yeah.
And it's such an intimate relationship,
right?
That you've got to have that chemistry with that person, otherwise forget it, right? So I highly recommend you interview them, highly recommend you interview multiple people, and you want that balance between pricing, experience, and fit.
Got it.
Yeah.
So you said first go find yourself a timeline, and then you said editors are really important. What was like the next step where you needed a resource?
Cover design. Okay, so I'm going to answer this question, but I'm going to answer this question with a caveat. In some situations, you get what you pay for. I really do believe that paying a fair wage for fair work. And so with the cover design, I researched cover designers, and they range anywhere from like $500 to it could be $2,000 to design a cover. And in all the research that I did, I couldn't find anybody that I really liked that was like that the cover stood out at me. And so I started researching other options. And so turns out that the cover designer that I picked was actually on Fiverr.
Okay, so you paid $5 for your cover art.
I did not pay I paid $5 for the cover, which was what I went out with my pre-launch. And then to do the spine and the back of the book and fine-tune the cover so that it was actually print ready, I paid another $20. So my entire cover cost me $25.
I'm just going to go on record right now as saying anybody who's watching this that's looking to write a book, don't budget $25 for your book art. Budget like $100, like a lot. Right, he said anywhere from 100 to 2,000. So budget for your book cover.
Budget, you should budget.
Brilliant, but don't expect that.
Yeah, that's exactly why I said I want to say that with a caveat. You could budget. I would budget $1,000, like for your book art, like because you don't know, like if you're writing a fiction book, like you may need a fiction, you need a person who can do multi-layers and all this kind of stuff. So,
can you show us your book while we're talking about the cover?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely.
Hold it up.
That's the front and that's the back. Well, you probably can't see the back that well, but there you go.
Yeah, we get the idea. Yeah. So cover.
Now I also, so the other thing to say about that is I also have a marketing background. I work, and so when I get a graphic designer, in my clutches, I can give them some very clear direction from a brand perspective and a design perspective that comes with my background. So
that's important to know.
In addition to the don't budget $25 to your book cover, understand that I was able to do what I was able to do because I have a background in marketing and I was able to give very explicit directions to the designer.
That is an important distinction. I know being able to communicate in somebody's language when you've hired them can be very, very helpful. So, okay, so good to know. So then you got the book cover. So find a good cover artist. What would be the next resource that
you need? Once the book's ready to go, you're going to need what's called typesetting, which is something that people don't really understand. But your book has to be laid out. And so it's not just a matter of we upload or we send a Word document to the printer. Like every single page has to be created so that the page looks right. Single space, like there's all these conventions that you wouldn't think is necessarily important, but what I found when I was researching it is when people pick up a book, because the printing of books and the reading of books has been around for thousands of years, people expect a book to look like a book.
Right.
And so you don't want to be the book that's distracting people because, you know, the way that your words line up on a line or in a paragraph are not the standard way, or the spacing is wrong, the fonts were laid out, and like all of that's important. So you want someone to typeset. So how did I typeset my book? I read lots about typesetting, and then I did it myself.
Okay, so what's next after typesetting?
So what's after typesetting, I'll say, is the decision that you make actually earlier. So you need to decide pretty early whether or not you're going to self-publish or try and get your book published through a traditional publisher. I chose self-publishing because in many publishing deals, what happens is once you sell the rights to the book, the publishing company then owns the rights to the book. And so if you wanted to do a workshop based on that content, you have to go get permission from the publishing company to then use that material because you've licensed that material to them. And I had no desire to do that. So I chose very early to self-publish because this was content that I planned to teach from. It's my work. And I wasn't giving that to anybody. When we talk about publishing, it's really a combination of printing and marketing.
Right.
It's got to be printed.
So when you self-publish, you're basically saying you're going to print it yourself and then market it yourself.
Yeah, you're basically, yes, exactly. So when you self-publish,
given your background in marketing, that makes sense for you.
Yeah, for me, I was like, okay, well, I'll just find me a printer because I've done printing.
So where did you print it?
And I chose CreateSpace because they're integrated with Amazon and Kindle. And so it's simply easy to publish. Oh, also, they were about 4 times less expensive than me printing the book here in Toronto, including shipping it from the US.
Wow. All right, so you self-printed, and then
Yes.
What are the top 3 things you're glad you did with your marketing so far?
I shared in social media the good, the bad, and the ugly throughout the whole writing process.
Yes, you did.
So that was the first thing. And I attribute going bestseller in Canada within hours of launching to that. Because our marketing campaign, our global marketing campaign, did not kick in until the day after the book launched.
Gotcha.
So we went bestseller in Canada just on grassroots marketing, social media promotion, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And then
Number 2?
Number 2 is work with someone who understands the ins and the outs of what it takes to be a best-selling author.
Okay, so grassroots social, find an expert.
And then listen to what they have to say and don't argue with them.
That sounds like the hardest one of all.
Yeah, pay them. And I argued. I at first, when, the tactics that she suggested, I was like, but I don't know, and I don't believe, and doesn't it belong here and in this category? And she was like, listen, you can do that. You can do that, and then your book will go up against Elon Musk's new book. And do you think you'll beat Elon Musk this week? I was like, well, why not? Right?
What was your budget in Canadian dollars?
My budget was $8,000, and I came under only because of the work that I did with the cover. So the cover saved me.
Right.
So yeah, my budget was $8,000. I came under.
If you had not gotten your book cover on Fiverr, would you have been over?
I would have been about on track. Okay. Yeah. And there's a lot of factors to that. Like how long is your book and how many hours, with an editor, it's not just, they're X number of dollars an hour and they work on so many words. If your writing is crap, they're going to need more time. So you're going to pay them more. Right.
So you mentioned that it took you 3 times longer than you expected to do the writing. What are some other challenges that you came up against as you were in the creation process that were unexpected? Yeah.
So, I'll say one thing about the writing process that was challenging that I didn't expect, which was I was having trouble getting the book out, like sitting down and actually doing the writing, just because that doesn't come naturally to me. So how I got the content out was I actually got on the phone with people like you, like Natasha, whose place you're at, like colleagues and friends, and we talked through the content of the book. And then I took those conversations, they were transcribed, and I started, and I worked with that to create the different habits.
That's really brilliant. A lot of people get stuck with a blank page.
Yes.
You basically figured out a way to get over that by speaking it out into the world, having it transcribed, and then when you opened it, you had a page with words on it already.
Yes. Yeah, and you know, and something that I was fond of saying as I was going through that process is, I frequently got writer's block, but I've never experienced speaker's block. No, it just, and I don't know anybody who doesn't have something to say, so just start recording yourself. And one of the most important things for me was I gave managing myself on the timeline to somebody else. So I had a project management intern who, the first day she started, I told her she was accountable for making sure that my book got published on time, and that it was her job to manage me. And after she got over the initial fear, she was really awesome. You know, because she would, on a daily basis, she would be like, you know, Damien, have you sent, you know, is the first draft ready? Is it in edits? Is it, you know, and I empowered her. So you know, she was my project manager.
Nice.
You have to expect issues along the timeline. So when you build that timeline, make sure you're building a timeline that already includes buffer periods, because I used every ounce of buffer time.
I would say with something like this, however long you think it's going to take you, multiply it times 3.
Yeah.
And then add another week at the end.
Yeah, that's probably a good number.
Yeah.
It's probably a good number.
So you have this international best-selling book. How are you using that new credibility to support the other areas of your business?
It's everywhere now. I'm changing all of my signatures to international best-selling author. My bio is changed. You know, how I introduce myself, like when people say, you know, introduce yourself, like you asked me to introduce myself. I changed the order of that, because when I know that if I say, and I'm, you know, an international best-selling author of Cure Entrepreneurialitis, people go, oh, he must know what he's talking about.
So it's like instant street cred.
It is totally instant street cred.
Was there a moment when it became real?
Yes.
Can you tell us about that quickly?
Yeah. So there's a moment, and it was really late at night. I was getting ready to upload it to CreateSpace. There was this moment of, I have a book. This is like real. This is a book. You know, like, damn, like this is about to go get printed. Yeah, and it was a surreal moment. You know, it was like, I still say, you know, you caught me. I still say I'm not a writer or da, da, da. But there was, in that moment, I was like, I'm an author.
And that's the important word for me. I think you can say you're not a writer, whatever, but you are an author.
Yes. And in that moment that it was ready to be printed, I was an author. I was not an author through all the manuscripts and all of that, but in the moment, I was like, this is real. This is real. Yeah. And then there's a second moment where it just kind of got like, boom. And that was the moment that I picked up the shipment. Like I actually opened the first box and
I have a picture of that.
Yeah, it's that was like I was holding it in my hands, and yeah, it's just
that's amazing.
Yeah,
I'm so proud of you.
Thank you.
Okay, so to wrap this up, I'm going to, obviously, if you guys look below this video, there's going to be links to some of the names and people he's referenced and different websites for resources. Where can people find you?
They can find access to resources and things about the book at entrepreneurialitis.com.
All right, so definitely go cyberstock Damien if you're curious. I do these lessons all the time when I bump up against something I don't know, so you can stalk me at adventuresofsunny.com, hashtag adventuresofsunny on all of the social medias. And thank you for sharing this journey of yours with me and my followers, and I appreciate it.
You're welcome. It was really my pleasure.